Behold my collection of G-Shock and Casio watches with large numbers. We're going to take a look at all of them that I own, and you can determine which is the largest, which is the best, which is the most legible, and which one you can afford. Who's kidding who? So the impetus for all of this is from Watch Dude David, who on a video about my GD010 asked, how big are those numerals compared to the AE 1500, which is a watch that he owns, and he made a 1-year review of his AE 1500. A really good video. Check that out on his channel. And in another video, he asked how legible and large are the numbers compared to the AE 1500. I'm deciding between this and the Mudman for my G-Shock AE 1500 Dream. All right, so he, like a lot of you, want a G-Shock version of the AE 1500. And is that the Mudman, the GW 9500? Well, I say yes, but others say no, because the AE 1500 only costs $22 at Walmart or from Amazon. I'll leave a link below if you're interested in this. In fact, I'll leave a link below for the Mudman too. My favorite watch. But the Mudman retails at $300, even more if you get one with a metal bezel. This is the GW 9500 Mudman. The bezel is metal. And this is the standard Mudman. The bezel is plastic, and you can see the warpage. Some gentlemen find this warpage unacceptable. All right? And so that's why I'm doing this video, because Watch Dude David was asking, but I know that a lot of other you are interested in this subject, which is you want legibility. You want legibility in your G-Shock watch, and you're led to believe that it's just not possible. Say, for example, on the King, the GW X56BB, which I own. Go ahead and try to read that. Very difficult. It's a negative LCD. It's recessed below 3-4 layers of protection. Hard to read. And the numbers are small, and they look smaller because of how big the King is. And then you just think that Casio just cannot make a watch with big numbers. And then you go into Walmart like I did, and the AE 1500 is right there with gigantic numbers, okay? In fact, these numbers, the AE 1500, have not been matched by a G-Shock that I've ever seen. And by the way, for all of this discussion, we're talking about the normal LCD. If you get a watch like this, which is the DWH 5600, you'll see that there's big numbers on this one. This is an MIP screen. It costs a lot more. And this is the Rangeman GPR H1000. You can see that I'm still in the midst of doing some repairs. But this has big numbers, but it's an MIP screen. For our discussion, we are going to stick with the LCD screen, okay? So the GD010 came out recently, and this is a more affordable G-Shock watch, okay? It has big numbers. But one thing you'll notice when you hold it next to the AE 1500, let me find the AE 1500 among this array of watches. This is what happens when you throw watches, you lose track. Where did the AE 1500 go? Here it is. You'll notice that the AE 1500, the numbers are still bigger and still bolder, okay? Now, I don't have like a really good precision calipers. Like, this doesn't even go down low enough. This is just like one I bought at, it's a Husky. So I bought this at Home Depot. So I'm going to find a better pair of calipers that, you know, we could really measure the actual width of these segments on the 8-segment LCD display of the AE 1500, okay? Because, you know, obviously we have to adjust for parallax and everything, but without actually measuring the segments, you can see that the segments are bigger. And these segments on the AE 1500 by Casio, this is like 1/8 of an inch. These are thick, right? Now the GD010, not quite as thick, you know? They're not 1/16 of an inch, so they're somewhere between, you know, 1/16 and 1/8, you know, probably closer to 1/8, but still thinner, right? And so The main advantage of the GD010 is that this is a G-Shock and does have that G-Shock durability. And I'm not saying the AE1500 is a weak watch, but I can confirm that it does have its limitations. All right, my buddy Will, who was a coil tubing operator, he wore his AE1500 in oil field operations, and he beat the dickens out of his AE1500, and it showed. All right, parts of it fell apart. It was all scratched up, dinged up, and barely holding on. Okay. And some other commenters have made note of the fact that, the resins that hold the bezel and everything on do come apart. All right, it's a $22 watch. When I extol the virtues of the AE1500, it really has to do with its price point, which again, about $20, $22. And I got mine with the extended wristband from Walmart, and there's some confusion about which one is actually available on Amazon, because some have reported that it does not have this extended wristband, nor does it have the double-tanged buckle, okay? But still, the watch itself, very good, okay? Now, Casio has come out with sort of an update to the AE1500, which is the AE1600, and here it is. And again, we got these big, huge numerals, right? And you have a front and center light button. Same sort of functionality as the AE1500. And I have not worn this one a lot, because soon after getting this, I got the Mudmaster, an $800 watch. And so a lot of my focus has been on testing this one, okay? So I'm going to have to come back to the AE1600, but I can tell you that, the functionality-wise, it's the same, and everybody loves the functionality of the AE1500, or 1600, excuse me. Now I'm confusing myself. Everybody loves the functionality of the AE1500. For a Casio watch, it offers a lot because it has, on the main screen, it has big numbers, time, day of the week, date, right? And then it has 5 alarms, timer, 24-hour timer, which a lot of these newfangled watches, like this $500 GPR H1000, does not even have a timer that exceeds 1 hour. So if you have one of those stupid energy-saving washing machines that somehow it takes like over an hour to do a load of laundry, meanwhile, my age-old Speed Queen can rip through laundry in like 20 minutes or whatever. That's why it's called Speed Queen. But all these stupid, newfangled, stupidly designed washing machines somehow take more than an hour. You can't even get your timer set on these newfangled G-Shock watches, but you can on a good old trusty AE1500. Same thing as the AE1600. You get that 24-hour timer, I believe. Actually, I should probably check before I say. As far as I know, they have not changed functionality on the AE1600, but it would be a terrible disaster if I even let out one bit of incorrect information on the Jim Kincaid YouTube channel. So yeah, it goes up to 24 hours. All right, so that's the AE1600 that I just tossed in there. And so the AE1500 also has that stopwatch, 100ths of a second. Again, not a function on these brand new MIPs. The MIPs by G-Shock do not have fractions of a second on the timer. And second time zone. All right, so when you're comparing these two watches, we'll group them together. All right, so the AE1500 and the AE1600. So we're talking about similar functionality. There's just a difference in shape. The AE1600 is square. The AE1500 has a circular face. All right, and obviously the band is longer. This is an extended wristband. But anyways, the question is, are we going to pay up for the GD010 because we're on a quest for those big numbers? We want a legible watch. Well, I say yes. All right. For me, this is about $100 GD010. I can't remember exactly how much it costs. I believe that it's $100 for the GD010, and then there's an analog GA010, which retails at $120. So it's conceivable that you could find it for less than that. So, you know, for me, spending $100 for a G-Shock to me is worth it. All right. But I still think that everybody should own an AE 1500. You know, even if it's not your daily driver, it's still one that's good to have around because it only costs about $20. And the AE 1600 costs more. I have not seen any deals on it. All right. So it costs a little bit more. And is it worth the extra to get to AE 1600? To me, no. Again, the big selling point on the AE 1500 is the low price point and the big long band. All right. Do you guys understand? So then, given the durability is limited on these Casio watches, is it worth it to bump up? And to me, the answer is yes, it is worth it to me. All right. And, you know, the length of the band is about the same. Now, we're gonna deal with Watch Dude David's comments, and you can check out his videos. He says he wears his watch loose, and he showed in his review video of his AE 1600 that he has it loose and there's space. The GD010 is conducive to that type of wear because it kind of bows out. All right, you can see how I'll just use my hand as a backdrop. You can see how it kind of bows out, and so it makes a little more sense for a watchband to be shaped this way, given the shape of a man's wrist. It has like two bones, and Johan van der Sant told me what the names of the bones are. I can't remember. I think it's like the ulna and the thumla or something like that. The tibula and the fibula. That might be a leg bone. But there's two bones in there, and so your wrist is not a perfect circle, right? And so it kind of makes sense that you'd have this type of shape on a watch band. And so the weird paradox of the GD010 is that the band is not like that long, but you can still get a 2x4 shaped wrist in there, okay? And it's a little bit better for someone who wants to wear his watch loose, and so air can kind of get in the corners. And so it has an interesting fit. You may need to try it on and determine whether or not it's for you. But again, the numbers are not quite as big, but they're still legible. They're still better than the small numbered G-Shocks. All right. And here's a typical. This is a special edition of the GW6900. All right, but it has the regular smallish sized numerals, and you can see that the light button kind of hides the numbers because the numbers are on the bottom of the screen, and they have these useless animations at the top, right? Well, the GD010, the numbers are big and in the middle, okay? And so you don't get them covered up, and so that's a good thing about this watch. Now, in terms of functionality, you look at the screen, you can see that you're going to have the time right in the middle. You have the seconds, and then you have the day of the week at the top and the date, right? And there's kind of a shadow here. So you do have a shadow from the bezel, all right? But then you have multiple time zones. So this is my brother's time zone, and that SCL, where's that? Sicily? So must be. Oh, Yazukstan. Shout out to everybody there. Chime in if you're from this time zone. Oh, so you can go through all the time zones. Kind of confusing. Anyways. Now the alarms, again, you have G-Shock alarms, which are, I don't remember exactly how many there are. 5? 3, 4, 5, and then the hourly chime. Yeah, so 5. So you're not lacking for that feature on the GD010. And you have a timer. How high does it go? Well, that's a good question. I forgot. So let's just check right now. So the timer, yeah, we're going all the way up to 24 hours. Yeah, 24-hour timer. So that functionality is the same. And we have the stopwatch, and it has fractions of a second. ticking down there at the top, and this has been running for I don't know how long, a long time, I guess. All right, so yeah, this is where you have the predetermined, no, this is the main time zone. Yeah, okay. All right, that's a low IQ run through of the watch's features. I just had to do it live to prove to myself that I don't think you're missing out on functionality between the AE1500 and the GD010. It's just a matter of the AE1500 having those big, huge, thick segments, not quite as big in the GD010. So in the GD010, you gain additional time zones. So the time zone, if you want to check a different time zone, it will take the internal time of the watch and then offset it by whatever difference between your time zone and the other time zone, all right? Now, I believe that on the AE1500, the second time zone is just set totally different. Like you just set a completely different time. Even the seconds, well, no, the minutes and hours, you just set it to a different time. I guess the seconds stay the same. But on the GD010, you set the time and then you check a different time zone, all right? So this is about $100. AE1500, about 20, we'll just say 22, 25, whatever. And then when you step up in price, you can get to the AE1600, or maybe you like the style better in the front button, okay? So 20, I can't remember exactly how much they cost. Let's say 20, 40, 100, all right? So between these three, which one would you choose? AE1500, 1600, or GD010? Now let's say you wanted to spend a little bit more. You get a Protrek, and this is the PRW 3500, still available, and it's a Protrek, so it's not quite as durable as a G-Shock. However, this particular one does have a raised bezel, does have a metal bezel, and these segments are pretty thick. Now, what you're gaining here in functionality is you have the ABC sensors, altimeter, barometer, and compass, and multi-band 6, and solar charging. So these three, just have a battery you have to replace when it dies. This one, was dead this morning. I put it out in the direct sun on the windowsill outside, and it came alive. That's why the time is wrong. It says Friday, January 1st. Well, that's not today. The time is not set. At midnight, it will automatically set by multi-band 6. All right. So the PRW 3500 is another big numbered Casio watch, but it's from the Protrek line. Now they do have the PR 35, which is available internationally. I'm not sure what you'd have to do to get it in the United States, but it's a more diminutive watch. This PRW 3500, the drawbacks to it is that these wings will absolutely tear your hair off. The band is not that long. The band is actually a little too short for me. I have difficulty wearing it. I can get it on, but it's not a pleasant experience. And it's kind of top heavy because of the metal bezel, so it does flop around a lot while you're hiking. And it's meant to be an outdoors watch, so I have tried it hiking. I wore it to Palo Duro Canyon, all right? But it does have those thick numbers, not as thick as the AE 1500, all right? And it's not an 8-segment display. As you can see, there's additional segments in there. Let me just hold it next to the GD010 for, so whose numbers are thicker? It looks like the numbers on the PRW 3500 are taller, but they look to be about the same thickness. All right. So this is kind of a wild card. I got this for like $112, but I bought it used on eBay. And the previous owner still had all the original box and everything, and it was in really good shape. I mean, all the damage you see done to it was done by me. It came in really good shape from the eBay seller. So thanks to him. Now, let's say you bump up to the $300 category of big numbers, and then you're talking about the Mudman GW 9500. So pretty much the exact same functionality as a PRW 3500, all right? But you do have a bona fide G-Shock toughness, okay? And not only that, but from my testing, this is the toughest G-Shock watch. It just destroys everything. Now, will the Mudmaster unseat it? I don't know, because I'm in the midst of testing it. I will tell you that the Mudman has a sapphire glass the Mudmaster has a sapphire glass, and the Mudman is just mineral glass, so it takes scratches. But you know that $300. Okay, so $300, and then I forget how much this is. You can see I already have a scratch on that one. It's from concrete. I ran it through concrete. The metal bezel Mudman. So, is it worth it to you to spend this much money on a watch? For me, yes. This is my favorite watch. Like, I could buy the Mudman. That would be my work watch. That would be my regular watch. And then, for the gym, I would be wearing the GBDH 2000. And then for church, I would have, a nicer metal watch. This is the Fine Metallic series, the GA 2100. And I do have another metal bracelet G-Shock. So that would be what I would do. So it is worth it to me to spend up for the Mudman. Now, David mentioned in his review video of the AE 1500 that he could buy 16 of these AE 1500s for the price of a Mudman, which is a good point. So cost-wise, you would have to just be breaking so many of these AE 1500s to, if cost was your only deal, you'd be paying a lot. I do think that paying up for $100 isn't that bad. But the thing about the Mudman is that, some of us are environments where, I'm out in the oil field. If I break a watch, it's not like I'm going to be able to swing by Walmart. I might be out on some far-flung location for days on end. And you want that dependability. You may not have a lifestyle where you're clocking in to work and then clocking out and going home. So if you do break a watch, that it's easy enough to replace. If you live and work in extreme environments, you'll appreciate the indestructible nature of this Mudman GW9500. So that's the way that I would go, and that's the way I went. I mean, I love this watch. Even if I didn't have a YouTube watch review channel, I would get the Mudman, the GW9500. And I'll leave a link for it below. The metal bezel, you're going to be paying a little bit extra, but these dogs are plastic. The bezel is metal, so it does have even more resilience there. All right. So the cost, it's up to you, but you do have a lot of functions, and because you have the altimeter, barometer, and compass, right? So here's a compass, and the compass is overlaid with that purple LCD. You have a barometer. Each one of these has a dedicated button, by the way. And in a barometer, you might be like, well, what do you need a barometer for? Well, if there's a sudden drop in the barometric pressure, pretty good indication a storm's on the way, and you have an altimeter. And so altimeter, if you go hiking, this watch can keep track of your height above sea level, right? For some reason, this is in metric system. I don't know how that happened. And then you have the time. Like I said, this one sets itself automatically from the multi-band 6 signal. You don't have that in the GD010. You have to set the time yourself. And then sunrise and sunset, right? This is, if you work outside, really important. If you do heavy haul, you have a permitted load that you're doing heavy haul in a truck, you can only drive from sun up to sundown. It's good to know when those events occur. And then this is you can record points in terms of the altitude. And then a stopwatch, it goes down to tenths of a second. The timer, actually, I don't know off the top of my head how high the timer goes. So let's check that out too. Yeah, you got a 24-hour timer here. See, at the top, 23 hours. So that's a 24-hour timer. and then you have the world time, and then this is when it received the multiband 6 last. We're back to the main time, right? And on the top of the screen, you have the day of the week and date, but not at the same time, or a little graph of the barometer. So there is a lot of functionality here, a lot more functionality from the GD0 and 0. You know, is it worth the $200+ difference between the GD0 and 0 and the Mudman? That's up to you. For me, the answer is yes. Is a $100 difference worth it from the GD0 and 0 based on the AE 1500? For me, the answer is yes, but I do recommend everyone just get an AE 1500. What's the big deal? Just buy one. $22. It's like, don't even open it, don't even take it out of the box until you need it. Just keep it in the box, keep it in good shape. And then like in the post-apocalyptic society, it will be worth like a lot of money. You could probably trade an AE 1500 for like a whole giant ham radio stack. This is like gold. This is better than gold coins. Like you want AE 1500s, lighters, bacitracin, and sunglasses, like safety sunglasses. That is what you need in a survivalist scenario. You should be stockpiling those along with cans of beans. Just buy an AE 1500. I'll leave a link below. Now, if you can't quite afford that jump up to the GD010 and you like the style of the AE 1500, or excuse me, the AE 1600 costs a little more, but it's still a good watch. You know, go for that one. It's really stylish. And then I'm not like a really huge fan of the PRW 3500, but some people absolutely love it. I had made a video about this one a couple of years ago, and guys watch it and chime in and say how much they love this watch. I think it depends on how much arm hair you have and how big your wrist is. This isn't the best for a big wrister, and it does tear out your hair, but you can, if you are, you know, kind of like inventive, you can devise a way to adapt this for a NATO strap, and that would make this PRW 3500 a fantastic watch. Still, my favorite watch is the Mudman GW 9500. The numbers are not as big, okay, but they're still pretty big. And, you know, a lot of people ask about the legibility because you do lose it sometimes. It's not as big of a deal to me. I've gotten used to it. But it is true that the AE 1500 doesn't have as much protection, and therefore it doesn't fade out as much as the GW 9500. I'm just moving those around, and you can see that it's a whole other factor I haven't explored in this video, which is how the numbers kind of fade at certain angles. You don't really have that problem. But the AE 1600 does seem to have that Casio feature / bug where straight on is not as crisp as when it's at a slight angle, as if you were holding it, like looking at your watch like this, right? See how it's kind of crisper there, but then when you look at it head on, just fades just a little bit. All right. So upcoming videos, we'll be talking more about the King, because someone asked me about whether the King pinches your wrist. So I'll be answering that question, as well as whether the King is good for a big wrister. And then the tough tests of the Mudmaster will continue. So stay tuned for that, as well as pitting it head to head to the ProMaster. All right, which one would you choose between these two? $800, and then, actually, I can't remember how much this was. I think it was like $600 retail. I bought it on sale. But anyways, sapphire glass, anti-digi, and the Citizen ProMaster has an MIP subdial. The G-Shock Mudmaster has an LCD subdial that's negative. All right, so these two will be going head to head. It will accumulate in the two of them being smashed together to see which one survives. So stay tuned for that. Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life. No man comes to the Father except through him. I'm Jim Kincaid. Thanks for watching. Actually, I should probably throw all of the big numbered watches Every watch that was included in this video. We'll just throw them back into the coffin that way.